United We Talk, the stream for political change.
Welcome to another episode of United We Talk. This time the cat completely took over the studio. We're doing the show out of the box somewhere from the transnational in-between zone. As usually, in the beginning we want to make a huge shout out to all of the crew of United We Talk. Without all of this unpaid work, this wonderful show would not be possible. But let's all remember, we do this show because of a global pandemic. So once more, we call out the audience to get active. Leave your seat in front of the TV. Get out on the streets to protest. Get organized. Do stuff. Support club culture and culture in general. All of this work is in a super precarious position. A lot of places, institutions and initiatives are endangered by this crisis. Support health and care workers that are still struggling for better working conditions and fair wages. Support housing struggles. We give a huge shout out to Riegerstraße and Liebig. The houses should be always a place for those who live in it. We will not rest until we live in a city where all have a place to stay, and right to the city is not just an idea but practice. Support people on the move. Leave no one behind should be the paradigm of this crisis. We must fight for a society in which there is place for everybody. To move, but also to stay. This means to abolish all prisons as well as deportation centers and refugee camps. No one is safe till all of us are safe. How can we keep distance if you don't have enough space? Support. Fights against white supremacy and racism. We need to think about how a society would look without police. How a society can be where assumptions, where like somebody comes from, where the color of his skin or whatever lie power structures based their exclusions on are dismantled and not longer relevant. Support all fights to abolish gender. Support trans, intersex and non-binary struggles. Let's fight for a queer world in where gender is not longer relevant. To say it short, let's be careful with each other. So we can be dangerous together, because this crisis is far from over. Only a world without capitalism and patriarchy, without class and race, can be one worth fighting for. My name is Precarity Cat, and I will guide you through this show today together with Cat X. I give now over to Cat X.
Also a warm meow and welcome from my side. Welcome to the show Stories from the Cats. We want to share some perspectives with you today. So those of you who did not already got up to change the system, stay for another 2 hours with us. Learn about the current developing of organizing in Vienna, where there is an association for club culture forming. Take a look with us into the panel from Degrowth Conference and into their panel for global solidarity. Let's hear what the cats have to say to the current development of the Coview network. We also will hear from Iraqi Autumn about the current work and perspectives. There will be news and videos. The show with the cats brings also in the tweet of the week, action videos and impressions from the Black Lives Matter movement. And last but not least, we have a wonderful post-punk music from Lautfragen, who will deliver the soundtrack for this show. We will also take a look into the making of the new album that deals with anti-fascist residents. And as always, join us on coview.info, comment in the chat and let us know what you think about this episode.
We now take a look into Vienna's current development of club culture organizing. As you all know, United We Talk came out of the context of club culture and is still a show that is mostly organized by people who are in this sector. It means that most of us who are club workers are currently unemployed or in a really shitty situation. It's still not clear how governments all over the world, how the society will save culture work in general and club culture in specific. Clubs will be one of the last places to open, and it's clear that in this global health crisis, in this pandemic, it's also necessary that places that are indoor, where there is a lot of people, cannot be opened. But still, it needs support for this variety of culture, where a lot of people come together, for example, LGBTIQ people, and a lot of communities that not have so much place within society. The night is a really important habitat for us to dance, to exchange, to have community. These places are currently missing, so we call for support for these infrastructures. This is the reason why in Vienna the initiative IG Clubkultur formed. Similar to what is already happening in German cities like Berlin with Club Commission, it's now time to organize. The IG Clubkultur is organizing Austrian-wide and calls workers and people who are active within that field to get active in 14 different working groups and to form like a speaker board to deal with that issues towards politics and representatives and bureaucracy. The current thing that is in development is a demo on 8th of August, so support what they're doing, listen to the calls, and even in wherever you are, you can send solidarity messages and think about how you can also support your local club and rave culture. So shout outs to Save the Rave, 8th of August, get active.
DJ und bin über Peter und Willi angefragt worden, ob ich interessiert wäre, diesen Verein mitzugründen. Nachdem mich die Anliegen der IG Clubkultur auch betreffen, weil ich eben von Maßnahmen der Corona-Situation auch arbeitslos war dementsprechend und ich jetzt auch viel Energien frei habe, um mich hier mit einzubringen, habe ich irgendwie nach einer Nacht Bedenkzeit sofort zugesagt und bin jetzt eben auch motiviert, da mit allen gemeinsam gesammelten Kräften was zu bewirken und freue mich sehr, dabei zu sein.
Wir sind heute hier am Heldenplatz und es geht darum, eben sich zu organisieren, um Kultur überhaupt als Kultur wahrgenommen zu werden. Also das Clubkultur, das ist diese Jugendkultur, das ist dieser Ausdruck, dieses Tanzen, dieses gemeinsame sich den Raum nehmen, diese Freiräume schaffen, dass es anerkannt wird, aber auch, dass es mehr Kohle dafür gibt, dass es bessere Arbeitsbedingungen gibt, weil ganz viele Leute arbeiten unbezahlt oder prekär und das geht halt nur für die, die reiche Eltern haben und für viele andere halt nicht. Und das muss sich halt ändern.
Dass es einfach mehr Möglichkeit gibt zu sagen, wir wollen kulturelles Ausschöpfen nach außen tragen und wir wollen uns zusammentun, egal ob man jung, alt, in welchem Bereich. Und dass das möglich ist und das muss erlaubt sein und dafür muss aber auch Geld geben. Und Corona zeigt es halt jetzt einfach, dass wir genau gar nichts machen können und auch kein Geld bekommen im Endeffekt. Und auch, dass es jetzt geregnet hat, haben wir dann doch kurzerhand verschoben, weil wir sind ja schon gut vernetzt an sich. Also alle, die Gründungsmitglieder hier sind, haben ja ihre Teile irgendwo in der Kultur und da schreiben uns natürlich auch die Leute so, hey, wie schaut's aus, Regen und so und es bringt halt nichts, eine öffentliche Veranstaltung draußen zu machen, wenn dann halt auf einmal doch der Wind und der Regen kommt. Deshalb haben wir jetzt auf 18.07. um 17 Uhr verschoben, hoffen da auf ganz, ganz viele Gesichter, neue als auch bekannte. Anschließend kann sich nämlich im Endeffekt jede Person, die sich als Teil der Clubkultur versteht, also ob das ob das jetzt nur eine Person ist, die tanzen geht oder gern diese Musik konsumiert oder eine Person ist, die da betreibt, ist komplett egal. Also wir machen da keine Grenze, sondern wollen eben eine Zusammenkunft schaffen und das kreative Potenzial ausschöpfen können und das hat ja jeder irgendwo in sich und jede Person.
Genau, und als eine der nächsten Aktionen planen wir gemeinsam eine größere Demo. Hashtag
Save the Rave!
Degrowth Vienna 2020 Strategies for Social Ecological Transformation was an online event that did happen in the end of May 2020. The conference did consider the role of strategy for a degrowth transformation and gave room for exchanging, reflecting and developing strategies with scholars, practitioners, artists and activists. By bringing together practitioners, artists, activists, civil society, actors and scientists, the conference had the goal to integrate different kinds of existing expertise and elaborate promising approaches to transforming the economy in a socially just and ecologically viable way. The conference had a participatory design, including a thorough documentation process that allowed to generate concrete outcomes for the degrowth movement and research society. This output is now online. We take a look into the panel called Global Solidarity.
The overall aim of the panel is to stimulate exchange between the Global South and North on socio-ecological transformation and solidarity. As we all know, when we are talking about the Global South and the Global North, we use the notions as constructed geographical areas, which are used to highlight hierarchies and power relations and even to refer to different epistemologies and ontologies. We are all aware that countries of the so-called Global South have undergone very different social, political, and economic developments. Due to the different histories, it is also important to question generalized meanings and concepts which we are using in the North. John Kammerer and John Kammerer argue, and now I'm quoting, Western Enlightenment thought has, from the first, posited itself as the wellspring of universal learning. Therefore, we have to contest the universality of concepts which we are using for describing environmental struggles and socio-ecological transformation in order to prove them if we can apply them to Global South. Many concepts exist which also came from the Global South. The development nexus still plays a fundamental role because values and norms of development policies are part of the social reality of different social actors and will persist. Beyond the development nexus, multiple partly overlapping alternative visions of the future circulate. For instance, post-development and degrowth highlight the role of alternative developments beyond modernity and capitalism. Concepts such as Buen Vivir, Vida Tranquila in Latin America, or Ubuntu in South Africa, or Ujamaa in Tanzania, illustrate the broad range of conceptions for an alternative future. Particularly in Africa, also concepts such as Afro-Turkey, Afrofuturism, or African Renaissance describe the need and the urgency to reflect about alternative futures. Because alternative futures are always embedded in North-South relations, Arturo Escobar argues that it is important to bridge North-South relations and tensions, particularly in the debate on degrowth. He argues that we have to overcome narrative, such as the North needs degrowth, while the South needs development. With the aim to understand future aspirations in the Global South and in the face of multiple crises, we ask our panelists for statements about the respective interweaving of multiple crises they observe, and whether this crisis provoked the emergence of activism and the development of an alternative future. We are also curious to know if and how these actors relate to existing concepts such as post-development or degrowth, and if the meaning differ in the North and in the South. And due to the fact that North-South relations shape future aspirations, we want to know if and what form of transnational solidarities emerge.
Well, I find the discussion very interesting in the sense that there are a number of commonalities. I don't want to frame it within the concept of North-South divide or the fight between the North and the Global South, but I would rather pinpoint it on the issue of decolonization of natural resource management. The way the mode of production that resonates in the whole of the Global South is something that we need to address. The way the resources are deployed, whether in Asia or in Latin America or in Africa, is very similar. So we should really highlight and bring to the fore the issue of decolonization of the development process. And this simply means bringing in equity, trying to eliminate inequalities in the development process and the use of natural resources that is available to the world. So the privatization of our resources in terms of water, in terms of energy, in terms of the food systems, I think that require a critical look to ensure that these resources are not just carted away at the detriment of the people at the site of extraction. There's growing violence in Latin America, in Asia, as well as in Nigeria, because as more and more of these resources are being taken away, it leads to violence at the site of extraction. So this is a very serious issue. And then the concept of degrowth is essential. It's very important as looking at development too. And we can even begin to talk about the ecological debt, for example, and the need for reparation. But much more important, the measurement of a country's or a people's well-being through per capita income and other human development indicators. We need to transcend those realms and move towards issues of human rights, issues of equity, and wealth redistribution. I think my colleagues, the first speaker, second speaker, and the third one, they spoke about this as well. It's very essential to re-engineer the development process, which I very much agree. Ecological restructuring, the last speaker mentioned that, and that is part of decolonization. So we need to see how we can live in harmony with nature. And talking about climate change, one of the best ways to do that is about alternative lifestyles. How do we then ensure that overconsumption in the north that is leading to overexploitation of natural resources in the south, we bring about a harmony to try to reorganize that, and so that we put people first rather than profit first. Thank you.
Violences and subordinations and also imaginaries. It's very important what Godwin said about create new narratives. So the new narrative, for example, and I see in the chat, does Africa can feed itself? Yes. And Latin America can feed itself? Yes. So this kind of interconnections that always create a dependency and always create a kind of help that should come from the ones that already are there in the first world. So I think this whole narrative has to be deconstructed because we only have one world, and it has to be inhabitable for everybody. So I think this is the question of the decolonization. I have a little bit of problem with the word solidarity. I think what we are looking now is more than solidarity. It's not like someone that solidarizes with something that is happening over there. I think we have to reveal the connections and the causalities and the problems in different regions and react to them in a network. I think the word I prefer is like compromise or implication, in thinking that we are all sharing one only world in which we live, and that what happens to them is happening to me. So in the Italian movement, I heard once this other word about complicity. We must be complicity one with another, and feel that if someone in Mexico, we have in the women's movement, we have this slogan: if one is touched, if one woman is touched, everybody is touched. So it's like this kind of reaction that I think we have to start to forge. Ime speak about meaningful cooperations. I think this is very, very important. And I was saying in my first talk that if something is happening, for example, in Mexico, in Oaxaca, and that implies Italian, Canadian, or Spanish corporations that are working over there, no, that are doing this with the approbation of the state or whatever, we need to have these movements connected. And how can we do that? Zapatista movement has been doing this in a global scale. We have, in the Zapatista movement, we have like this kind of global manifestations against something that is happening, for example, in Mexico. So this should be like all over the world. And now we can do it because we have this. Now I'm talking with you that are in, I don't know how many different places at the same time. So we can do a lot of networking. We can first visibilize the causes of who are the companies and make a quilombo in the cities, in the corporation physical space. No, we have to make presence there and say you are doing that over there, and we don't agree. So I think this kind of we can do boycott, we can obstruct this kind of things. So I think we in a collaboration action program, a network, we can do a lot of things. So they can also feel we are connected. So not only that transnational corporations are connected all over the world, no, we have to be connected and act like one in many, many spaces. So that's what I can elaborate. Thank you.
Thank you also to be so critical when we are using the term solidarity and to reflect about this concept as well. I really like that. I would also like to give you now, Godwin, the opportunity to quickly respond on the question of Alexander, because then we would like to go to the third part and the last part of our panel by referring to the questions which have been asked in the Q&A mode. So Godwin, you have to turn on your microphone, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for the questions. I think my colleague who just spoke have answered most of the questions. It's not really an issue of solidarity the way we know it in terms of cyber actions, petition writing, and all that. This is far more than that. What is required, which has a lot of problem also, is to think locally and act globally. I think that concept has been there, but I struggle how the Southern movement will project to the global North and say decolonize your mental faculties in terms of development. So that in itself is against the current hegemonic capitalist system that promotes growth, promotes profit before people. So I think this is a central element. How do we create a new narrative that takes cognizance of the inequalities and the dire poverty that is massive on a global scale?
Creative methods during actions are always welcome. Here we see some state-of-the-art zeitgeist street hockey. And now we will hear the track Staub vom Städten from the artist of this show called Laut Fragen.
Staub von Städten ist mir noch geblieben, von den vielen Straßen, von den Träumen. In den Augen brennt der Staub und auf den Lippen blieb ein Nachgeschmack mir vom Versäumen. Blaue Achse zog, flimmert Staub, zieht in Wolken oben, fällt und deckt, was abbrach und betrug. Staub von Städten ist mir noch geblieben, von den vielen Straßen, von den Träumen. Und auf den Lippen blieb ein Nachgeschmack mir vom Versäumen. Lange war der Weg und manchmal bitter. Langsam blieb der letzte Freund zurück. Dunkel oft und manchmal ein Gewitter und ein kleines Regenbogenglück. Staub von Städten ist mir noch geblieben, von den vielen Straßen, von den Träumen. In den Augen brennt der Staub und auf den Lippen blieb ein Nachgeschmack mir vom Versäumen. Staub von Städten ist mir noch geblieben, Sternenstaub, die Poesie der Straßen, kurze Pausen, hastig fortgetrieben, ist ein Netz von langen Jahren.
Some of our cats gathered to have a chat about the current development of the Coview network. The Coview invites for the next network meeting. We invite groups and individuals from everywhere to share their experience and knowledge on July 27th at 7 p.m. online. Send us an email to coview@riseup.net if you want to take part in a meeting.
Check. Hello and welcome, dear Coview cats. We are part now today of United We Talk, Stories from the Cats. It's the show And yeah, we gathered here as fellow cats from Coview network to exchange a bit about the current transnational networking perspectives and what we think about the political situation. So yeah, the more cats, the better. How can we? As a network of, yeah. So we thought we start with an introduction round. Chaos Cat already introduced himself, trying to sabotage the computer. So who are you? What brings you here today? Who wants to start? Maybe, yeah.
I can start. Hello, everyone. I'm Scratchy Cat. I live in Hamburg and I am part of the Coview network. I am here today because to me it is very important what we said we will be talking about today, and it is transnational networking.
Yeah, so I continue. I'm Brie, I'm based near Graz, and I'm also part of Coview and of the networking group of Coview. And I participated in the transnational trans-border summer camp last week. And there I noticed how important this international networking is. And this is why I'm part of today's discussion.
Hey, I'm Frankie Cat, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing this important issue today. I'm also part of the Coview group since almost the very beginning, and part of this transnational network, hopefully in the future also. And looking forward to discuss how we can organize in the coming weeks and months and exchange experiences about what happened.
Hey, my name is Precarity Cat. I'm based in Vienna, and I'm also part of the networking group, and I'm dealing a lot with the questions of social media and activism and various questions. And I ask myself a lot, where do we go from here? Like what does actually really change through COVID-19? And one thing that I feel like that is changing is that actually more people are open and see finally the necessity of really doing stuff together, as it's clear that the situation not only in Europe but like worldwide is really bad. Like I think that the gap in between societies is getting bigger actually through this whole crisis. And I'm curious, what is the current development? I mean, we all know that at the moment within Coview we are trying to expand this network. So I was curious to hear what you think about this current development of our own organization that we're part of, and then maybe later on, like the general tendencies in society and what we maybe should focus on, different aspects. Yeah. So maybe one of you wants to share what is happening inside Coview at the moment?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can start if you want. Well, I found it very interesting that in the past weeks and months, a lot has changed again in comparison to the very beginning of March, for example, when the group was founded, and the very, very big interest at the beginning, where a lot of people felt very much the need to get active, especially online in the lockdown times. And we had a lot of people in all the meetings and different people who wanted to exchange, and saw the need. And now I feel like it's so interesting time. What also in terms of what this kind of activist structures and organizing structures I also rely on. that it's now a lot of people kind of going, let's call it maybe back, or concentrating more again on the more in the work on the organizations they have been involved in like before maybe. And so the Coview network, I think, is now in this kind of transition time where people want to exchange, but also are not that much more maybe interested in like this online organizing as they were during lockdown times. I feel like it changed quite a lot in the past weeks. And yeah, I find it, would like to hear what you think about this.
Yeah, I have the same impression, and what I found interesting from the beginning and really inspiring is that so many people from different fields and with different issues joined Coview, and I think there is really much potential still in this diversity of the group. There are people who deal with racism, migration, work, housing, people with special needs, and many different perspectives were brought into Coview. And when the lockdown was over, everybody wanted to meet personally again and go out in the parks and everywhere. But on the other side, we had this big network that developed during the lockdown time. And we have this infrastructure, this online infrastructure. And we have some formats like the radio, the United We Talk, the newspaper. And so I think it's a great chance to use all this infrastructure and this knowledge and this experience and this very diverse number of people also for the future to exchange the experiences.
And maybe to add on to this, I mean, this is what we are currently doing, or like we are sharing this knowledge, and we're offering other groups and people to join into this process. So like I think it was last week that we had like this meeting where like several more people from other groups joined, and now the plan is to continue this, like maybe more also on a practical level, not just theoretically talking about what a network could be, but like practically going into an exchange, inviting other people. And like on the website on coview.info, you can find if you can check out when the next meeting will happen, and you can write us an email at coview@riseup.net. If you want to join, if you want to share your experience, if you want to connect to the network with your group, with your ideas, with your thoughts. And I think this is very important, that we're not staying in like small bubbles, but like that we are collaborating on a transnational level. Like for example, with this newspaper, that not just people write articles and then they're like on a blog or like in their own circles, but like that we exchange articles through various cities and then also bring them into print and distribute them in the news in the neighborhoods, for example. Like that we really bring this ideas, these conversations we have also to audience that maybe would not be so much into this discussion otherwise.
So maybe let's go on a bit. We have talked about the network now and the whole reason why the network. I'm sorry, I have a young baby cat here and she's constantly scratching. That's why I'm kind of distracted. And I would like to talk about the reason why we even started forming this network. So it had a lot to do. The whole idea of Coview came not only about out of the existence of the virus COVID-19, but also out of how society began to change and how in different nation states actually different measures were taken. And to me, it's very interesting maybe give a short input how we feel how things have changed in the past 3 months, or where we feel we are now. Because for me personally, the interesting thing is that I do not believe that in a way the virus itself or the danger of the virus has in a way changed. I'm sorry, I will just pick up the cat and then maybe she's attacking my feet. So I don't believe that the virus has changed. But it's interesting how in Germany, for example, people have started behaving completely differently and in a way more lightheartedly, because they think that things have changed just because government measures have changed. And so that is like one interesting thing concerning sickness and health, or what has changed. And what's also very astonishing is, you remember, like back in the first days of Corona, or maybe even the whole first month, every evening people were standing on their balconies and clapping for health workers, care workers. No one does this anymore. And it's not like they ever saw better payment or they ever had less to do all of a sudden. So it's all these little things that kind of are re-changing again, but in a way, I'm really curious where this is taking us to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very important point. And also, I think I remember something we said at the very beginning, like the actually reason or idea of this political watch group was to also see how everything like measurements are taken back, or what happens after, what kind of structural help or mutual help, or where do people like actually act in solidarity, and also what do governments do and what do unions do, for example, to help the people, or in this case, for example, health workers. And I feel like there were some very like big political decisions made also like economically, and also to save, for example, jobs or whatsoever, or companies or industries. But on the other hand, we don't really see, or what I see, I haven't seen it at the moment yet, we can't really see that these are anywhere like any big progressive successes or anything. We're like really small like successes, maybe for some unions, for the bigger or like the industries with quite big lobbies anyway. But like the most precarious sectors, for example, they didn't get this like structural like support that and also we now see like going into this like big recession probably, or are already in it, but don't really in countries like Austria or in like parts of society. For sure we don't feel it yet that big, but like I think there is a lot coming still. And big parts of society, or now in summer, I feel like this awareness also like, as you just said, when people really cared about or looked really inside different sectors like the health sector, and clapping and appreciating what they're doing. Now this is kind of over again, and people are concentrating where to do the next vacation pretty much. And there are little scandals like in the livestock or meat industry, and then we see it. And I mean, there might happen some changes, but not really big structural changes, I feel like. And most of the actual attention, public attention, goes on small scandals. They're super like important that they're like uncovered and everything, but the big structural changes I so far haven't really seen. So it's it's I think super important to keep watching.
Yeah, I would even like say that there are big structural changes happening, but not in the way as we maybe would like them. Like I would say that the change of how the gap in between people who have a lot of resources and people who have like little to no resources, like this gap is rapidly growing. Like there was never a stop of, for example, payment of the rent. Like, so all the housing industries are really benefiting from this crisis, while people have the same amount of money as in before. Not the same amount of money as in before. Like most of the people have now limited amount. Like a lot of people lost their jobs, so they only get like what they get for unemployment. And like there is various precarious sectors, like for example, all these people who work in the night gastronomy, or people who like all this, I would say smaller associations, the whole culture sector, all this self-employed people, the smaller companies. I think they're really screwed at the moment. Like I think like a lot of these businesses are currently still running, but they don't. Most of them maybe don't have a perspective of where to go to. And I hear a lot like this term of like that something is not maybe closing now, but in a few months. And what is the perspective and where to go to, and how should this like be sustainable? Like I feel like a lot of people lost trust in that it can somehow work out. Like it's this is something that I'm feeling. And at the other hand, I feel like that those who got most of the support were like the big industries. Like there was never a discussion of whether or not to save like the flight companies or something, but like there is not a big discussion about how to prolong or how to proceed in the health sector, what to do with arts and culture. And in education, I think like there is a really strong development also, that all of these people who could not really participate well in this online teaching because maybe they were like single parents and they had kids at home, or like because they also need to see where they get their money from, or like because they don't have like the technology tools to participate fully in like these online courses and school stuff. Like this creates also a big gap in between educational like access. And I feel like these are aspects that are not really discussed, and at the same time a lot of things that are really negative. Like even in these situations we are still talking about deportations happening. And I think even this situation got worse. And when we hear about the reports from Alarm Phone and other groups monitoring like the European border politics, like where we see that COVID-19 is used as an excuse to push people away and even to justify deaths with that. So I feel like a lot of things that were bad are still bad, and a lot of things got worse now.
Also, I just wanted to add one little thing because it just came to my mind. Things could have changed for the better too. I mean, it would have been the ideal moment to test the bedingungsloses Grundeinkommen, the unconditional basic income, for example. Instead of just keeping to a system that is failing, keeping to a system that just puts money where it already is, for example, with rent, it would have been such a small thing in even from an economic point of view, seeing that we are obviously all drifting into a recession, bringing up the basic income right now would have been the chance to stop recession. Just
Yeah,
Maybe the
exactly.
cat
But yeah,
maybe the
I
cat
think
jumped again on the computer.
I hope she'll come again. So I think the point is that governments and many people and mainstream media and so on, they do not think about changing the system, but they think about how can we get growth again, how can we get jobs again, and how can we return to business as usual as fast as possible. So it needs these social movements for degrowth, for human rights, anti-racist, for basic income, for the health system, for the education system, that really system changes will happen or could happen. So I think this is one of the main reasons why we should have such a network. And the other thing is that Coview was used to close the borders It was said that it was because of the virus, but I don't think that viruses are prevented by national borders. It was mainly for keeping people out nobody wants to have, and this, I'm afraid that these closed borders will still, we will still have these closed borders for migrants for some time, and this is another point we should work on, that people can come again and get safe passages and get safe places to stay.
Yeah, I feel like that this situation of the virus really, like what we were kind of describing in the beginning, like that we are afraid of, that this is like now the playground for those who are for surveillance technologies and for the military complex of the state and for all of this like really bad things that we know from dark sci-fi, from dystopian things. I feel like some of these aspects are really becoming reality now. Like I feel, for example, that that they're allowed to the army, for example, within Austria, to act on the border, which was not that much before, and also like extended surveillance tools that are in use now or that they're trying out. Like this is so rapidly going faster, and I feel like even if some of these things just might be now then taken back, if the situation is a bit more calm, it's like right in the drawer. They can anytime pull it out, work with that experience, work with that money, work with that tools again. And I found it so crazy. Like, for example, in between Austria and Czech, they're doing border controls with the military. Like, there is nobody crossing the border because why? I mean, like, it's as usual, people use regular routes and there is not really any irregular traffic on that border at least. But you still have like a lot of military in that area, and it feels like, oh, now they finally have the political go. They can try out their scenarios. They have a lot of people they can command around, and they have the money, and like these absurd things happen all the time. And I think this is creating a really weird tendency also in society. Yeah, so I think all these aspects that were important before, now it's really necessary to bring them together, like to bring anti-militarist movements together with no border movements, together with like this movements for degrowth, for like ecological change. And I also think it's important to say that COVID-19 will not be the last crisis. I mean, like if we look at climate change and what this will bring with, like we can be happy that we now have a virus that is, let's say, relatively not so dangerous as maybe some other sicknesses that might come up through this rapid climate change. And I think these are scenarios and developments that are not being talked about so much. Like that actual climate change is a really big danger to a lot of people, to all of us. And it should be taken serious as COVID-19.
Or even more serious. Even if we have an international perspective, COVID-19 isn't over yet. Because if you look at the US or at Latin America, many people are still dying from the virus. And it are really those people, the social weaker people, the Black people, the indigenous people who are affected most. So we still have also this question to look at. So we really need this international perspective to have a big overview what's happening due to this crisis and in relation to other issues, other topics, other crises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess this is where we are now, and this is where all of you who are listening and watching us talking about this can come in. We need more perspectives. We need more viewpoints that we can bring together to kind of not not only form a network of our active stuff that we are doing, but also to form a network out of all the different ideas that all we have, how we could change the situation for the better, for more people, how we could build up a broad resistance. And also, we need to know what is happening in different countries, in different cities, in different environments. If you are from a suburb somewhere in southern Germany, the corona crisis is going to affect you totally different than if you live in Lisboa, or if you live in, I don't know, Shenzhen, wherever.
In a camp in Moria.
What?
In a camp in Moria.
Yeah, or in the camp in Moria, of course, exactly. So that's the whole idea behind this network, is to bring together all the different perspectives, and each for us not only to see for ourselves how we act locally, but also how we can bring this together, how we can learn from strategies other people have, how we can learn from the kind of repression that states use in other countries, and see if this maybe could happen at our place too. And also we can share knowledge, and also maybe try to help each other if we are not all in the same privileged situation, and see what we can do together.
Yes.
Yes.
Don't have to add anything to that.
And the next track is from our featured artist of the show, Laut Fragen, and it's called Nie wieder.
Beim ersten Schritt in die Freiheit habe ich nicht alleine mit den anderen einen Schwur geleistet, dass wir alles daran setzen wollen, dass so etwas nie wiederkommt.
Dass man Menschen verfolgt, weil sie anders denken, weil sie eine andere Farbe haben, eine andere Religion, weil sie gegen die Gewalt sind, weil sie ganz einfach sich selbst sein und nach ihren eigenen Regeln leben wollen. Niemals vergessen! Niemals diese Zeit vergessen! Die Menschen sollen das als Mahnung aufnehmen. Was geschieht, wenn Freiheit und Demokratie zerschlagen werden und die Gewalt Oberhand bekommt und siegt?
Iraqi Autumn is a group of Iraqi artists and activists living in various cities in Europe and based in Vienna. Let's see on their actions they did before the lockdown, and let's hear on what they are currently working on.
Hallo, ich bin Yasser, ich bin Techniker. Willkommen in Wagners Projekt.
Ich bin Hussein Baham, ich bin Video- und Performance Art Creator und ein Mitglied in Speakerats Production, Radio Auto und Wagners Project.
Hey, this is Gary. I'm a musician. Actually, I'm a producer. I will play the song. I designed it for Wagners, Radio Auto und Speakerat Production.
Hallo, ich bin Sanja, ich bin 31 Jahre alt und studiere an der Akademie der Bildenden Künste Architektur im Master. Ich bin Künstlerin und Aktivistin, genauso wie Architektin natürlich, und arbeite im Kollektiv seit November 2019.
Dancer and choreographer. My collaborative projects cross boundaries of performance, science and communication. I'm interested in transmedial, interdisciplinary and intercultural art projects.
In der Corona-Zeit war ein bisschen schwierig, uns zu kommunizieren. Es war diese Zeit, wo wir halt nur online skypen können, um den Projekt zu entwickeln. Nach der Corona-Zeit hoffe ich, dass es besser wird, dass wir uns wieder normal treffen können und unsere Projekte zu entwickeln. In der Corona-Zeit war auch gut für mich als Künstler und als Person, dass ich mich selber schauen, in welchem Weg ich gehe. Ich habe viel gelernt, Schneiden, Videomaking und viele Sachen und Details gelernt und habe ich entwickelt. Und ich hoffe, dass wir mehr Projekte, Ideen entwickeln zu können. Dankeschön.
During the lockdown, I focused more on my family. Many projects of mine got cancelled, and I stayed in Austria with my family. After the lockdown, I re-engaged with my projects and workshops, and I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming projects, performances in summer and in autumn.
Actually, COVID-19 time, to be honest, I would say it was really healthy time for me. Why? I knew who I am actually. I planned a lot of things. I finished my mini album. I had really good connection, me and my family right now. And we planned already for Wagners project a lot of things. For example, I would say we have like right now planned till 2022. We have a lot of projects. I just want to say, just wait for that and be happy. Peace and love and take care of yourselves, guys.
Den gesundheitlichen System und das Sozialsystem haben wir hier in Europa oder in diesen Ländern so ein großes Privileg, was es halt in den anderen Ländern, in den armen Ländern nicht gibt. Und das ist schon ein großes Privileg, was wir hier haben. Ich hoffe, dass alles besser wird.
Während der Corona-Zeit hatte ich natürlich auch die Möglichkeit, viel über das Privileg nachzudenken, was es überhaupt bedeutet, hier zu leben in dieser schwierigen Zeit, und eigentlich nochmal gemerkt, in was für einer privilegierten Welt wir eigentlich leben und wie gut es uns geht, im Gegensatz zu vielen, vielen anderen Ländern und Menschen während dieser sehr schwierigen Zeit.
In the collaboration with Iraqi Autumn, I explore power and privilege through embodiment. My position as a female artist and my intercultural relationship will be triggers for my upcoming research for the project Wagners.
Lockdown haben wir natürlich eine ganz neue Art herausgefunden, wie wir miteinander kommunizieren können. Natürlich über Social Media, über Facebook-Calls. Und Das hat natürlich auch Dinge effizienter gemacht, also Meetings, die normalerweise viel länger dauern würden, waren dann kurz und knackig. Deswegen ist für mich eigentlich die Erfahrung durch den Coronavirus eigentlich eine ganz schöne, und zwar, dass man Dinge schneller auf den Punkt bringen kann und dass man sich auch mehr Zeit nehmen kann, um andere Dinge zu überdenken oder auch sich mit anderen Dingen zu beschäftigen.
In der Corona-Zeit haben wir viel geskypt und haben wir ein Projekt Wagnis entwickelt, viele Sachen in dem Projekt vorbereitet, um diesem Projekt im September realisieren zu können.
On July 14th, the Molecule Man, a statue in Berlin, was again a place of intervention from activists. The statue came out queer, featuring a rainbow mask and skirt. The action is in context for the current find around the houses of Liebig 34 and Rigastraße 94. Both of the self-organized housing projects are under attack. Investors are trying to take these houses that are part of our community. Let's support the initiatives and their struggle. COVID-19 made once more clear the necessity of self-organized housing. With the pandemic fear from over, we condemn these actions of police aggression, and we condemn to those politically responsible for allowing the deal with housing as a commodity.
Die Skulptur Molecule Man prägt das Berliner Stadtbild. Der Künstler, von dem die Skulptur stammt, stellt wie viele andere öffentliche Monumente gerne Cis-Männer in heldenhaften Posen dar. Wir haben genug von patriarchalen Symbolen, die eine ausgediente Herrschaft repräsentieren. Deshalb haben wir das Stadtbild gequeert. Am Tag für Non-Binary Visibility und für jeden Tag. Wir sehen dies als notwendiges Zeichen für eine diverse, solidarische Stadt und gegen Ausverkauf und Verdrängung. Von Verdrängung sind insbesondere People of Color, Trans, Inter, nicht-binäre Personen, Frauen und Queers betroffen. Akut ist das anarcha-queer-feministische Projekt Liebig 34 von Räumung bedroht. Gemeint sind wir alle. Wir wollen Orte selbst gestalten und aufbauen, solidarisch und von unten, queer und unversöhnlich. Wohnraum ist keine Ware. Wir sind nicht käuflich und wir lassen uns nicht vertreiben. Weder unsere solidarischen Strukturen noch unsere Freiräume und Utopien. Dafür haben wir heute ein Symbol geschaffen, in Solidarität mit allen betroffenen Personen und Projekten. Wir solidarisieren uns insbesondere mit der Riga 94, die in den letzten Tagen rechtswidrigen Räumungsversuchen ausgesetzt war. Wir sind nicht käuflich, unser Widerstand lässt sich nicht beherrschen. Eure Norm wird unsere Wut. Wir machen eure Wände wieder bunt.
At 25th of June at Braunkohletagbau Jenschwalde, 13 activists from Ende Gelände were squatting the coal infrastructure in the coal mining area of Jenschwalde. This action shows once more that we need to take action against climate change into our own hands. This is a call to all to think about what is possible, what possibilities do you have to fight climate change and for a climate-just society. Every crisis needs to be taken as serious as COVID-19. A society that does not take climate change serious is an unjust one that takes into account the potential death and suffering of many.
Hinten könnt ihr schon sehen, die Lichter. Und da gehen wir jetzt hin, um endlich dieses Kohlegesetz zu stoppen, weil das einfach ein Klimaverbrechen ist, was die 1,5 Grad Ziel aus Paris auf keinen Fall einhalten wird. Sind wir jetzt hier auf dem Weg hoch, ganz nach oben zum Bagger und freuen uns total, jetzt aktiv Kohleinfrastruktur zu blockieren.
Okay, also ich fühle mich sicher hier.
Super. Danke.
Auf geht's, ab geht's, Ende Gelände! Auf geht's, ab geht's, Ende Gelände!
Ich bin Mira von Ende Gelände Berlin. Neben mir steht Nema. Wir sind gerade total erleichtert, dass wir es alle heil und gut gelaunt auf den Kohlebagger hier im Tagebau Jenschwalde geschafft haben. Wir genießen jetzt erstmal den Sonnenaufgang, frühstücken in Ruhe. Wir hatten gerade den ersten Bannerdrop und nehmen dieses Gefühl jetzt auf, hier irgendwie in diesem Ort der Zerstörung zu sein, diesem riesengroßen CO2-Produzenten.
Genau, weil der Ort steht tatsächlich stellvertretend für die Ungerechtigkeiten, die wir im globalen Norden weiter produzieren und reproduzieren, auch in Form des Kohlegesetzes, was nächste Woche verabschiedet werden soll. Und deswegen sind wir heute hier, weil der Kohleausstieg immer noch Handarbeit ist, haben ein super Auftaktwochenende. Neben uns, da drüben auf dem Schaufelradbagger, gibt es inzwischen auch ein weiteres Transparent, was runterhängt. Und wir freuen uns total. Und jetzt ist es Zeit, erstmal anzukommen und sich gemütlich zu machen und den Kohleausstieg selbst in die Hand zu nehmen.
And the next track is called 6434 from our This Show's major band called Laut Fragen.
Gestern trug ich lange Haare, heute ist mein Schädel kahl. Gestern trug ich einen Namen, heute trage ich eine Zahl.
34, heute trage ich eine Zahl.
Verblutend, schuffelschädig und am Stock, schwankten mal ihre Tage zwischen Bunkerton und Bock.
Bis dann schließlich eines Tages einer von den Quälern kommt, um die Nummer auszulöschen, weil sie zu nichts weiterem formt.
64, 34, heute bin ich eine Zahl. Morgen nur ein Häufchen Asche. Eine Nummer war einmal
64, 34
6434
64, 34 heute trage ich eine Zahl. 64,
We now come to the tweet of the week. It's from Magdalena Liedl. Her profile is to be found at Twitter with @Lina_Liedl. She posted it on July 15th. Ich finde, diese Statistik verdient mehr Aufmerksamkeit. Menschen, die seit März ihren Job verloren haben. 54.700 Frauen zu 9.400 Männern. For all of you who are English speaking, she posted about a statistic in Austria about human who lost their job in March. It's about 9,400 men versus 54,700 women.
Families from across the US whose loved ones have been murdered by police converged at Minnesota State Capitol, calling for the reopening of all cases of police violence and hate crimes. The march, which includes over 100 family members, took place almost 50 days after George Floyd's horrific murder by Minneapolis police officers. The Twin Cities had become the epicenter of renewed national demands for the police accountability. Helping to push the demands are those impacted most by the actions of the police, the victims' families. On July 12, 2020, over 1,000 people marched in the National Mothers' March and Weekend Against Police Violence in St. Paul. The march featured family members from high-profile cases as well as other cases unseen and hardly heard. We spoke with numerous family members, all still grieving the loss of their loved ones, and while continuing to fight for justice, change, and accountability. Organized by the Justice Squad, Minnesota Families Supporting Family Against Police Violence, Take a Knee Nations, Community Against Police Brutality, 10K Foundations, Justice for Brian Gunowas, Mass Actions Against Police Brutality, Black Lives Matter Chicago, and others, the event was heavily guarded against potential threats by armed patrol units. Joining the families and organizations like the Sisters of the Movement were many coalitions and groups coming from out of town to take part in the march. More information at https://unicorn.ninja.
It's special because who would have thought so many of us would have lost a child to a police officer, someone that's supposed to protect and serve our children. Our children used to look up to police officers. Our children wanted to be police officers. Nobody wants to be a police officer anymore because of this. And it's sad because of what's going on with these bad cops. It's making all cops look bad. So like I said, by being out here with these mothers, it gives us a sense of security that we're not in this by ourselves.
If Andrew don't get it, shut it down. I said if Andrew don't get it, shut it down. I said if Andrew don't get it, shut it down.
We got to make sure that these police are held accountable. We got to stay out here in the street. We got to continue demanding justice for these babies, and we got to continue to let the police know it's not okay for you to go home to your child, but we can't go home to our child. We got to go to the graveyard to visit our child. So we got to make sure all our demands are heard.
We're still seeking justice. Jonathan was a resident of Green Bay when he was killed October 19, 2018 by Green Bay Police Department and Brown County Sheriff's Department. He was handcuffed and he was killed, shot 8 times, 5 bullets, entered his body from behind. And so the officer was cleared. He was also promoted.
I got your back. Watch my back. I'm under attack. You got my back. I got your back. You got my back. I got your back.
I stand with the families, because every time I hear another story, I know that I have to welcome these families into this circle that none of us asked to be in. And I know how it feels, that my son's case never got that attention that he deserved. So that's why I'm out here, because if I wasn't out here, if his mama wasn't out here, nobody would know about what happened to my baby. And the world deserves to know what happened to him. They murdered him, and we don't need these murderous cops out there on the street, and they're still working.
It feels kind of good seeing everybody, sadly for the most tragic reasons, but yeah, it feels good to see everybody. And for everybody to love on each other and the attention that's given.
Don't wait for it to be a high-profile case to get involved. Get involved now. That's it. Point blank, period.
We are trying to open up all these cases, okay? We have a petition that is online. We're going to try to get it to you so far we have 300,000 signatures. We want you to sign and join us in solidarity. Every case matters. Every case matters. Every victim matters. Every victim matters.
As soon as I seen the George Floyd situation, I felt that because they didn't give him medical attention for 8 minutes. My sister's shit was 10 minutes. I watched that shit.
That's your sister, Nakia?
Yeah, Nakia Moody.
What happened? She
was dealing with some mental health problems and they were called for a medical emergency. But by the time they got there, they were trying to, from the police report, they said they tried to diffuse the situation because they seen that she was very manic. But they didn't really do that at all, actually. They just restrained her, and in the middle of being restrained, she went into cardiac arrest. And in the video, from the body cam video, the officer was saying that she was playing possum. So they were basically trying to say that she was playing dead, but actually she was losing her life in that moment. And it was really fucked up because, like, in the last moments of her life, I knew that she was gonna go and pass because the last thing that she said was that she loved her kids. And I know that's a fact because I'm with her kids right now. So I just like to draw awareness to her situation because she's right here in Minnesota too. And this was 2020, this year. So yeah.
Yeah, February.
Yes.
Minneapolis police?
No, actually, it was the Ramsey County sheriffs that came to the scene on that day. It was actually February 6th when the police got there. So February 10th on this date is when she was pronounced brain dead, actually. And it was definitely hard because I see my sister go through a lot of shit. She was a survivor, you know what I'm saying? So to see her go out like this, it's fucked up.
It's like 4 months after. I don't know
so
how you're talking about it.
Yeah, so it's hard. If anybody was in the Selby area, you know my sister very well. That's why I need the city of St. Paul to support us in this situation because she was definitely loved and supported out there. Hashtag Justice for Kia. If you see it online, share it.
George Floyd really has been a catalyst for pushing these larger demands of divesting from the police and abolishing the police. You know, we've seen like, 5 to 10 different organizations cut ties with the police already. So really it's feeling like we're getting nearer to liberation, and it just hurts that, you know, it has to come at the expense of like people's lives being lost. But, you know, again, it's a catalyst, and I feel like we're trying to organize around that. And I really love the outpouring of just support, the resource, the networking, the mutual aid. I feel like that's really the coming together. We were just talking about how, like, if there's always this much food and water, like, why can't we just always have it like this? You know what I'm saying? We have the capacity to create these mechanisms that are keeping each other safe and fed and taken care of.
Can you give us a synopsis of what you think a world without police looks like?
Definitely just money going into mental health services. I'm talking like therapists, counselors, you know, family therapists, relationship therapists, like really giving mental health the funding and the attention that it needs. And really when we talk about abolishing the police and like transformative justice, really transforming the conditions that allow for crime to happen and allow for injustices to happen. So when we're building up these super tight support networks of getting people the food that they need, making sure people have money to pay rent, making sure people are right in their minds and having the healing and holistic health that they need. I feel like when we push all of those just kind of general wellness, that sets the groundwork to be able to abolish the police. And when we say that we're going to transform the conditions that we live in to allow us to be our best selves, I feel like that's what's going to be the potential for us to like not need this sort of oppressive militaristic force on us already. So definitely plugging into mental health sources, plugging into kind of like restorative justice, community-based like forums, whatnot, you know, all of this is really, like, I love the imagining portion because I feel like it's really hard for people to imagine what life is like outside of the police. It's easy for people to imagine like the end of the world, but how do you imagine a utopia for yourself, you know what I'm saying? So just imagine a world where everybody has everything that they need, and it's like, why would you need police if we're all taken care of, if nobody has to steal and shit on other people, you know?
During the show, we did already hear some songs of the band called Laut Fragen. We will now see the making of their new album that deals with history, resistance and anti-fascism. Laut Fragen is an electro-post-punk duo consisting of Maren Rahman and Didi Disco, who came together in 2014 to set historical text from the anti-fascist resistance to music. The first album, Utopia und Untergang, mainly features self-written texts. The present project, called Facets of Resistance, is a return to the original idea. They found and set to music are hidden from and forgotten pearls of subversive poetry. At their weblog at lautfragen.blogs.org you can find out details on the historical background. All songs can be downloaded for free or for a free donation at Bandcamp as well. The readers of the text were Jewish, Christian or atheist, bourgeois, communist or even politically rather disinterested, but full of rejection against a dull and violent regime. The types of resistance were also diverse. Some joined the armed freedom struggle, others deserted or tried to persuade soldiers to desert. Persecuted people were hidden, and there were information campaigns and acts of sabotage. We are very looking forward to now see the making of their album. It's a documentary in German.
Die Sendung heißt Cheerful Resistance und sie wird gesendet über den Sender der Freien Radikalen Ideen und heute bei Rainer Crispel, dem Musikarbeiter, unterwegs zu Gast im kleinen Sendestudio Laut Fragen, Didi Disco
Hallo.
Und Maren Rahman.
Hallo. Seele bebte, das alles war irgendwann, irgendwo zuvor, das alles blieb vor dem eisernen Tor.
Wir sprechen über Lautfragen und ihr neuestes Werk Facetten des Widerstands. Und wie habt ihr euch denn gefunden, ihr zwei?
Ich tue ja schon lange eigentlich historische Texte vertonen mit der Ziehharmonika. Und ich habe einfach gesagt, ich möchte mal jetzt was anderes probieren und würde total gern gerade diese Texte aus dem Widerstand, Texte aus KZs einfach mal anders aufarbeiten, um sie auch einem anderen Publikum nahezubringen. Dann hat der Didi gleich gesagt, ja, ich mache Musik, lass uns das doch probieren.
Hey, du da! 3 Meter zurück! Kleiner Startnachteil! Auf die Plätze! Fertig! Los!
Haben wir uns einfach ein Backen Bücher genommen und haben dann lange und hunderte Gedichte durchsucht. Und eigentlich sind sehr wenige übergeblieben, weil sie, wie gesagt, sehr oft sprachlich extrem veraltet sind oder extrem depressiv sind oder pathetisch bis zum Gehen nicht mehr.
Also mich würde das ja wahrscheinlich als Musiker dann auch womöglich deprimieren. Also
es sind Texte, die im KZ in extremen Leidenssituationen eigentlich geschrieben wurden, aber eigentlich war mir und dann auch uns immer wichtig, auch so was Mutmachendes dabei zu haben, einen utopischen Moment dabei zu haben, was Visionäres. Wir haben mit Deserteuren gesprochen, wir haben mit Geflüchteten gesprochen. Es geht um Exil, es geht um ganz verschiedene Formen von Widerstand, verschiedene Facetten.
Also das heißt, das Widerstand, es gibt nicht den Widerstand, sondern es gibt tausende Widerstände sozusagen. Und das finde ich ja auch wahnsinnig inspirierend. Ja.
Das ist ein schönes Teil.
Ja, eigentlich wollte ich da für den Anfang unbedingt einen Synthesizer haben, der ist nicht dahergekommen. Und dann haben wir das mit den Gläsern gemacht. Und so fängt die CD oder die Platte an und so hört sie auch auf.
Beim ersten Schritt in die Freiheit habe ich nicht alleine mit den anderen einen Schwur geleistet, dass wir alles daran setzen wollen, dass so etwas nie wiederkommt.
Dass man Menschen verfolgt, weil sie anders denken, weil sie eine andere Farbe haben, eine andere Religion.
Ich habe Irma Trixak ja noch kennengelernt. Sie ist ja fast 100 Jahre alt geworden. Ich habe sie in einem Altenheim getroffen und war gleich fasziniert von dieser Persönlichkeit. Sie hat so gesprüht und liebte Musik. Und das war auch das, was Gefangene, die waren ja alle in Einzelzellen, und viele erzählen, dass es ihnen irrsinnig Mut gemacht hat, dass sie, wenn sie Musik gehört haben, und die Irma hat immer gesungen im Gefängnis.
Niemals vergessen! Niemals vergessen! Niemals diese Zeit vergessen!
Diese Zeit vergessen!
Die Menschen sollen das als Mahnung aufnehmen. Was geschieht, wenn Freiheit und Demokratie zerschlagen werden und die Gewalt Oberhand bekommt und siegt?
Irgendwie geht mir der Schlurf ab. Ja. Die Schlurfs, die haben ja im Prater sehr viel gemacht, und da habe ich ja ein Bild gefunden von einer Hochschaubahn. Augen, Nasen, Ohren. Ich hatte eigentlich schon richtig gute Augen. Dass die Augen da so im Prater quasi auftauchen, ne? Ja, und dann eben die Messer so. Wir werden unsere Messer schwingen und St. Louis Blues wird erklingen. Wir werden unsere Messer schwingen.
Schlurf gehört, und dann kommt dieser Refrain, wo das alles vorübergeht. Und ich begann tatsächlich beinahe zu weinen, weil es so lebensbejahend war. Ich glaube, da ist auch ein Sprachsample drinnen im Schlurf.
Ja, das gehörte zum Projekt auch dazu, dass wir eben Zeitzeugengespräche führen. Den Paul Woditzka, den kenne ich schon länger, und zwar gab es und gibt es immer wieder Veranstaltungen zur gewaltfreien Befreiung Otterkrings. Es war eine junge Gruppe von Kommunisten und Kommunistinnen im Jahr 1945. Die Rote Armee stand im Wienerwald und war bereit einzumarschieren. Die deutsche Wehrmacht hatte den Befehl, bis zum Letzten zu kämpfen. Und die haben dann gleich gesagt: Hört's auf, ihr seid nur Kanonenfutter, Schluss, ja. Die Helly Neuhaus, die ich auch noch kennengelernt habe, die ist leider schon verstorben, die hat geholfen, Tausende von Zivilkleidern diesen desertierenden Wehrmachtssoldaten zu überreichen. Und dadurch war das natürlich viel leichter. Und diese Geschichte erzählt der Paul Woditzka gern. Und dann betont er immer, richtiger Schlurf ist er nicht gewesen. Die Mama war Schneiderin und die hat ihnen schon irgendwie witziges Gewand. Aber das Backel hinten, das hat er nicht gehabt, ja. Also die langen Haare, ja, ganz wichtig bei den Schlurfs.
Das Ende vom Lied, also das zweite Teil, ist die Schlurfhymne.
Die haben das gesungen so?
Ja, die haben das gesungen so. Also ein Lale Andersen Durchhalteschlager, jetzt geht alles vorüber. Einer der wenigen Songs, wo wir eigentlich gecovert haben in dem Sinn.
Es geht alles vorüber, es geht alles vorbei. Zuerst geht der Hitler und dann die Partei. Es geht alles vorüber, die Heimat wird vergehen. Aber der Schluss, der wird immer bestehen. Es geht alles vorüber.
Marische Musik wollten wir doch eher vermeiden, also solche Elemente haben wir dann oft schon gehabt oder wieder rausgenommen, weil das irgendwie den Texten widersprochen hätte.
Die Schlurfs haben sich natürlich an der amerikanischen Popmusik, am Swing orientiert und da haben wir uns auch versucht, ein bisschen einzuhören. Und wir haben ja auch den Gastmusiker finde ich, der großartig uns bereichert hat, der Jakob Gniegler, wo wir auch gesagt haben, fällt dir was ein, dass du irgendwas so ein bisschen swingmäßig da jetzt reinbringst noch?
Das macht das Lied auch total auf. Es ist so ein geiles Saxophon, hat man schon lange nicht mehr gehört.
Combat, das heißt Kampf. Das ist die Aufgabe eines jeden. Jeder Mensch, der normal denkt, muss gegen das kämpfen. Dann hat man mich geschnappt.
Sehr gelungen finde ich ja auch dieser gelesene Text, dieser Combat quasi.
Das ist ein Zeitzeugen-Gespräch.
Dann bitte ich um die Geschichte, das habt ihr aufgenommen.
Ich bin gefragt worden, ob ich bei einer Gedenksteinverlegung, also diese Stolpersteine, ob ich dort Musik machen kann. Jedenfalls haben wir ihn so kennengelernt und ich habe dann den Didi angerufen und gesagt, du, das ist eine urspannende Geschichte. Ein Mann, der als kleiner Bub irgendwie aus Wien fliehen musste. Sollen wir da auch ein Interview machen? Und er hat gesagt, ja, machen wir. Und ich habe dann schüchtern gefragt. Und er war in Purkersdorf, war er untergebracht bei einer netten Familie. Und da haben wir dann dieses Interview gemacht mit ihm über 1,5 Stunden. Und das war dann natürlich auch nicht einfach, wie vertonen wir das, ja? Dass diese Geschichte irgendwie im Mittelpunkt steht und wir trotzdem musikalisch was dazu tun können. Da haben wir sehr getüftelt.
Ihm hat das dann auch sehr gut gefallen, unsere Version. Da waren wir ein bisschen ängstlich, muss ich sagen.
Ja. Herbert Traube war eben dann im Widerstand in Frankreich und ist aber irgendwann dann doch in die Fänge der SS gekommen und war eigentlich im Deportationszug, der ihn im Endeffekt nach Auschwitz gebracht hätte. Und hat es eben geschafft, durch die Belüftungsluke im Viehwaggon durchzukriechen und vom fahrenden Zug zu springen.
Türe zu und drinnen im Waggon nur eine kleine Öffnung. Der Zug fährt los. Ich bin neben der Öffnung gestanden, habe Luft geschnappt, es war schon ziemlich heiß und habe rausgeschaut und dann ist mir eingefallen, ich stecke den Kopf zwischen die zwei parallelen Stäbe da durch, draußen rausgeschaut, Luft geschnappt und da hat einer hinter mir gesagt, weißt du, wenn der Kopf durchgeht, dann geht der Körper durch.
Ich glaube, dass sowas ja eine große Wertigkeit von Facetten des Widerstands ist, dass man so im Grunde solche Anekdoten auch transportieren kann. Ja? Weil ich glaube, dass dieser antifaschistische Konsens, auf den sich die Republik Österreich vermeintlich beruft, ein sehr löchriger ist. Ja? Und ich glaube, das zeigt sich da ja wieder, wie wenig Rollenmodels wir haben.
Man gab ihr einen Spaten, um zu graben. Sie grub und wusste schon wozu. Sie weinte nicht. Sie schaute starr nach Osten. Da geht so meine Partisanin, die fängt an zu schaufeln und dann wird ziemlich schnell klar, sie muss ihr eigenes Grab schaufeln und das ist schon sehr, sehr heftig, das ist wirklich so ein richtiger Tränensong irgendwie und da haben wir gedacht, wir brauchen noch was und haben dann einen Text von einem Kärntner slowenischen Autoren noch dazu genommen. Das Text Upor, Widerstand.
Und das ganze Song ist ja ein Soundtrack.
Fast ein Hörspiel.
Ein Hörspiel, mit allen Geräuschen haben wir nachgemacht. Alles mit dieser wunderbaren Kinderschneeschaufel mit Mäuseaufklebern. Beeinflusst den Sound wesentlich.
Die Leiche wurde schweigend zugeschüttet. Soldaten liegen finster in ihr Zelt. Die Landschaft aber sang in langen Nächten das Partisanenlied vom Kampf der Welt. Ich finde es einfach immer wieder wichtig, den Mut einfach nicht zu verlieren, ja. Und da sind uns natürlich die Autorinnen und Autoren dieses Albums großes Vorbild, ja. Ich meine, die waren noch viel beschissener, die Zeit damals. Und die haben gesagt, wir müssen was tun.
Die Stunde findet sich bereit, kein Schritt, der mich gereut. Ich weiß, mein Ringen und mein Leid sind Saatkorn einer neuen Zeit. Das heißt, auch ein Bewusstsein dessen, dass ich jetzt strauchelt und kämpfe, sage ich aber, hey, wenn ich das aber tue, dann ist es. Ich meine, das ist ja, das gibt schon jetzt ganz unmittelbar Kraft, sogar ohne den historischen Kontext, finde ich.
Das haben wir ja eigentlich mit einem Video, ich weiß nicht, ob du es gesehen hast, also wo wir tatsächlich ein Mädchen genommen haben und das so eine Transformation durchmacht. Also autoritären Charakter sozusagen oder untergeordneten Charakter sich dann irgendwie daraus selbst befreit und am Ende ist es halt bei einer Demonstration, es war Fridays for Future, was man jetzt nicht so klar erkennen kann. Wir wollten es auch ein bisschen offen lassen, aber man erkennt es schon, wenn man genau schaut, also so die Geschichte eines jungen Mädchens, aber gleichzeitig könnte es auch die Geschichte der Gesellschaft sein. Ne? Also dass es so ein bisschen utopisches Potenzial hat.
Wir sind das Morgen, morgen wird heute. Ihr seid das Heute, heute wird gestern. Wir sind das Morgen, morgen wird heute. Ihr seid das Heute, heute wird gestern. Wir sind das Morgen, morgen wird heute.
Ja, Rebellen des Morgen. Da gibt es ein Geräusch, das haben wir ziemlich verzerrt, das ist eine singende Säge, kommt davor. Der hat die Sarah Bölzl eingespielt, eigentlich bei 3 Liedern, beim Junge Partisanin, bei Vergessen und bei Rebellen des Morgen. Und bei Rebellen des Morgen läuft es dann noch durch unzählige Gitarrenverzerrer durch, gibt dem Lied aber was ganz Eigenes.
Und eine andere Gastmusikerin haben wir auch eingeladen, die Friede Kundreiner, ist aus Kärnten extra angereist, weil wir wollten beim Schlurf einen Cello-Klang dazu und auch bei Staub von Städten.
Staub von Städten ist irgendwie die Ballade des Albums, dass der sehr dafür gekämpft, dass es so ruhig bleibt.
Der Text ist einfach wunderschön, in den haben wir uns gleich verliebt. Also für mich ist das ein Song für alle Menschen, die flüchten müssen, die sich auf Reise begeben müssen, egal aus welchen Gründen, und das Alte zurücklassen müssen und sich in einer neuen Welt zurechtfinden.
Staub von Städten ist mir noch geblieben, von den vielen Straßen,
auf den Lippen, blieb ein Nachgeschmack mehr vom Versäumen.
Der Großteil der österreichischen Musiker und Musikerinnen kämpft halt als Verleger und so weiter und sein eigener Vermarkter dahin. Ja, tatsächlich hat bei euch dieses wunderbare Label aufgezeigt und gesagt, wir wollen das machen, so wie das jetzt.
Die waren auch wirklich begeistert. Die sind auf Post-Punk ist so ungefähr ihre Richtung und die haben gesagt, oh, endlich was Politisches, das ist super, das wollen wir unbedingt gern machen und das hat uns natürlich sehr gefreut.
Und ja, dadurch hat sich das auch ganz gut ergeben. Es waren dann immer so 2, maximal 3 Songs fertig. Die haben wir auch dann wirklich so erst entwickelt. Manche Texte waren auch von Anfang an gar nicht klar. Okay. Oder wir hatten mehrere Texte zur Auswahl und haben uns dann für einen entschieden, den wir dann noch raufnehmen. Ja, es ist mit der Zeit dann ein bisschen klarer geworden. Oder welches Lied fehlt jetzt in dieser Sammlung noch? Viele Sachen entstehen auch wirklich spontan. Ich schraube da am Synthi rum, bis die Macherin sagt, stopp, das ist jetzt mal eine coole Line, bleiben wir mal bei der. Und dann schauen wir, welcher Text vielleicht dazu passt und davon geht man weiter. Und der Text gibt die Stimmung vor und wir überlegen uns, wie können wir die Stimmung und die Aussage dieser Geschichte am besten musikalisch umsetzen. Das heißt, dass drum eben eine Elektrobank drauf ist und eine andere Nummer, die eher an Ennio Morricone oder Filmmusik erinnert. Darum haben wir auch ein sehr breites Spektrum an musikalischen Stilen jetzt drauf.
Wir freuen uns natürlich schon wieder auf Live-Konzert auf jeden Fall. Also jetzt wird es echt langsam Zeit.
Gestern, wann war das gestern? Ist es ein Monat, sind es 2? Oder sind es gar schon Jahre? Gestern, einerlei. Gestern trug ich lange Haare, heute ist mein Schädel kahl. Gestern trug ich einen Namen, heute trage ich eine Zahl.
Und leise sind wir nicht.
And we now end this show with a warm meow. See you on the streets, in the digital alleys and in the social center and in the parks. Let's fight every crisis. Stay tuned, stay and become active and form transnational networks.
Hilft keine Amnestie, den Toten gibt keiner das Leben. Wer zum letzten Mal unterm Galgen schrie, der wird nie mehr sein Haupt erheben. Doch es gehen unter uns und im ganzen Land umher die toten Genossen, die gestorben sind von des Henkers Hand, die der Klassenfeind erschossen. Wenn wir werken und ruhen und sie hören Aufruhr und Klage. Sie messen und wägen genau, was wir tun und sie prüfen die Tat unserer Tage.
Nichts steht die freche Gewalt, die es gilt für immer zu brechen. Die Stimme der Toten wird klirrend und kalt, ihr Urteil den heutigen sprechen.
Das Schrecklichste an allem Leiden, dass du aus seiner Flut tauchst und vergisst, und dass du weiterlebst ein kleines Leben und nicht mehr traurig, nur noch müde bist, nur noch müde bist. Geschäftigkeiten wie Sterne eines fremden Schicksals stehen, wie Sterne eines fremden Schicksals stehen. Doch manchmal spürst du selbst, dass deine Freude und deine Trauer ohne Tiefe ist. Und dass an allem Leiden dies das Schwerste, dass du erwachst und lächelst und vergisst und vergisst. Dies ist das Schrecklichste an allem Leiden, dass du aus seiner Flut tauchst und vergisst, und dass du weiterlebst dein kleines Leben und nicht mehr traurig, nur noch müde bist. Schmerzen im trägen Fluss des Alltags untergehen und über deines Tags Geschäftigkeiten wie Sterne eines fremden Schicksals stehen. Wie Sterne eines fremden Schicksals stehen. Doch manchmal spürst du selbst, dass deine Freude und deine Trauer ohne Tiefe ist. Und dass an allem Leiden dies das Schwerste, dass du erwachst und lächelst und vergisst.
Hallo, wir sind der Alex, weil wir einfach ganz viel Zeit haben. Habt ihr Bock drauf?
Und wir sind Alex, weil wir das Beste aus Ost- und West-Berlin sind.
Ja, Wostler sozusagen.
Quasi,
Wossis.
sozusagen.
Ja. Wir sind Wossis vom Beruf. Ein dreimal hochwertiges Goldenhandwerk schuf.